Is it just rainbows and unicorns living in Portugal? If you want to find out, stay tuned. Coming up next. Hey, I'm Natalie. If you're new here, welcome. I make videos about living in Portugal and living solo as a middle-aged 50-year-old woman. If you want to know more about these topics, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment, and let's get on with the video. So let's talk about the 4 major challenges I think for me are to live in Portugal. And again, there's challenges living in any country, even if it's your home country. That's just what I observed here in Portugal as a foreigner, expat, immigrant, whatever you want to call it. So number 1 for me is the language barrier. Yes, I have some experience in, I speak a little French, I know a little bit of Italian, and I have I can recognize a few words in Spanish, and some even Latin words, pop in once in a while. But because it's so random, the language is taken from all the other languages, there's no rhyme or reason to it. For me, it's really hard to learn it to make any sense of this. So I have to kind of dismiss this hearing the other languages. Even though when I read it, I usually understand a little bit. Anyway, it's hard for me. For most people, it's a hard language to learn because there's no rhyme or reason and all kinds of other different problems for me anyway. Yes, you should learn before you come. Take a basic course online or get at least an app, which I didn't do, but I just had too much other things going on that I couldn't wrap my head around learning it. My brain can't cope with all this at the same time. And it's hard for me to remember it, but I guess repeating, I guess, and listening and hearing it and watching TV, especially movies or kids shows, because they repeat the same words, right? It's always sort of similar. I'm sure that helps. So I'm trying, but that's definitely the biggest challenge is the language. I am gonna go to school in September, so we'll see how that works, because I'm not very good at school, perhaps, with all the, the grammar, but, we'll find out how long I last. Now, the other challenge, number 2, major challenge for me, or just in general for people, I think, is the healthcare system. It is free if you get your national healthcare number. But like in this town, for example, the health unit, I think that's what you call it or the health clinics, yeah, it's a clinic, I guess, is always full, and it's a long waiting time. Sometimes you're there for hours and then you get sent away. Sort of like in the hospitals in Canada, and I'm sure it's probably the same when you go to the hospital here. You'll have to wait for hours unless you're like a super you have a super crazy emergency, something sticking out of your head, or your arm is cut off, I don't know, some life-threatening thing, then. But that's no different than in Canada too. It's yeah. But yeah, it's just hard to make an appointment. It's hard to be seen. I think it's hard to get a doctor in the national system. I have private insurance, but I'm not really keen on always paying for all the services unless I need to go to a specialist or something. So I am going to look into to get a doctor so I can go into get that sorted. So I'm gonna look into that, see if I can get a actual family doctor. Apparently, I noticed when I lived in a smaller village by Tomar, it was easier for me to see somebody than it would have been in Tamar. So sometimes because it's a smaller community, and they now seem to have more doctors like there permanently, not just coming when certain times. It's easier to see. It's less people, so it's easier to see a doctor. So just bear that in mind. Do your research about the doctors and healthcare situation. It all depends on your budget. If you have enough money and you can spend it on private insurance and in private, you know, care, then it's probably the right way to go. It's still cheaper than in the States. Now, one third challenging thing about Portugal living is the bureaucracy. Sorry, hard word for me to see in English. Bureaucracy, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, even Portuguese people are frustrated with it sometimes because there's so many different departments working all for the same thing, so that at the end, but to get to this end, you need to go through all these steps, which is not like it is in most other countries. I don't know. Again, it's not like that in Canada, and it's not like that in Switzerland, even though there is a lot of that in Switzerland. Canada's more streamlined, so they make it fairly easy. There's one office mostly, not 5 different offices to get the one thing done. But maybe that's just securing jobs and make sure that people have, I don't know, get employed. You know, who knows what the exact reason is. Sometimes you get grumpy people, but again, that's pretty normal. Like, you can get grumpy people in Canada too. It's not, that's not a Portuguese thing. But yeah, if you're not used to it, it can be it's a lengthy process and can be frustrating if you're trying to live here and you can't get things done in time, and you have to leave the country again for some people because they can't get their paper in order or get the paperwork done. You know, who wants to leave? Yeah. I have heard that before. Some people have to go back and wait. You know, where do you go back to if you know, have to sell your stuff to? So you need a lot of money if you're, like, I'm lucky sort of because I don't need a visa, but because I'm a Schengen resident. But when you come from the US or the UK now or Canada, you gotta go through all those steps, and if you don't have enough money put aside so you can live at home still while you're not living there to wait for your stuff get done here, it can be frustrating and expensive. So, but even other things are sometimes silly to stuff that has nothing to do with visa requirements or foreign situations. It just has to do with regular day-to-day happenings. Like even a bank account, it seems a little silly what all the steps you gotta go through, but I guess they got their laws, and you know. So just be aware of, it can be a nightmare for some people to try to navigate the system. It's good to have Portuguese people, especially if you not speak the language yet or not very well, or you know, if you have to go to these official offices. A lot of people don't speak English, or they refuse to speak English to you, which, you know, I mean, it's their country, and why would they have to speak English, right? You're the one who comes in, not the other way around. So yeah, it helps to know somebody or have an organization that does stuff for you if you not very confident in these things. So I had a lot of help from Portuguese locals, my neighbors, and you know, etc. helped me out, so I'm definitely thankful for that. But yeah, bureaucracy is no joke. And the fourth challenging thing is there's quite an economic despair going on. Yes, it's cheap they think it's, you know, you think it's cheap for you to live here, especially as an American or from the UK. Not so much from Canada, I guess. The Canadian dollar is down, so it's actually not very good. But, or not as good as the other countries I just mentioned. but the minimum wage is very low. It's hard to make a living. You need, you know, to afford these prices. Even if you live in a little village, the groceries are still going to be the same expensive. And I'm sure your cable or your phone bill is still going to be the same. They don't make a difference where you live, so. And then you need a car, and that is the extra costs, car and fuel and insurance and all that jazz. So it is not as cheap as you think it is. So make sure you do your research. And anyway, if you're well off and you have a lot of money and made a lot of money selling your house, or have a good pension, or have a good investments you can draw from, great, you know, go for it. I'm just warning the people in general that it's not as cheap as you think. And you need to do your research and make sure you have the funds and you can figure it out. So yeah, it's not as easy, especially for the locals to live here. These are the 4 challenges. There's more, of course, but those are just the ones that came to mind. Maybe help you to decide if you really want to live in Portugal, or you just need to be aware of these things, you know. No country is perfect, and see which one of these things you can live with. And there's lots of other reasons that's a challenge. I made a video, you can watch it up here, where I say, when I tell you the pros and cons of living in Portugal. To me, again, that's very subjective, my case, but I hear stuff from other expats, so I'm kind of mixing that in with my experiences. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share, and ring the bell, like, and leave a comment. It really helps to get the video out there. The algorithm picks up the video when you interact with me. By liking and asking a question or commenting, it helps YouTube to think that's, you know, is a good video, it's a, you know, good enough to watch for other people, so it gets put out there. If nobody comments and nobody likes anything, then the algorithm thinks, well, this video is not that important. So just keep that in mind if you try. You know, that's a way to support me. If you already watched this, might as well say something and like it. Maybe even share it if you know somebody else that needs to wants to know these things or should know these things I'm talking about. Please pass it on.